Do not covet. It may be the most neglected of the 10 Commandments. Join us for this important conversation today on Family Vision.
Hi, my name is Amy Rienow. Welcome to Family Vision with my parents, Dr. Rob and Amy Rienow. We want to help your family follow Jesus every day.
Rob and Amy Rienow here with Visionary Family Ministries. We always look forward to spending this time with you. And we want to give a big welcome to the Song family from California. They have recently joined the Visionary Family community. Welcome, welcome. We are looking forward to building a relationship with you, helping your family follow Jesus along with the other visionary families from around the world. If you'd love to join a like-minded community of families looking to follow Christ, we would love to have you be a part of the Visionary Family community as well. Go to visionaryfam.com, click the Join the Community button, and learn all about it. All right, sweetheart, before we jump in, summer is in full swing. Things are ramping up quickly.
Yes, it has. I feel like it's been in full swing as soon as we hit graduation. As soon as the graduations were over, it has been quite intense. But we are coming into 3 significant VFM trips with the Dominican Republic and the Filter of Hope, our first family missions trip, which we're super excited about. Then our Cedar Bay camp is full, and that is exciting. We have been praying for that to fill up, so we will be doing our very first VFM Biblical Worldview camp. And then we get to go have the opportunity to speak at Gull Lake, which is one of our favorite camps. I think my kids are feeling a little bit like we might have scheduled too much because that was going to be pretty intense anyway. But then my parents tacked on a trip to Branson in June to celebrate their 80th birthday. And that's going to be so much fun and a family reunion. But the kids are like, are we going to be home at all this summer? So we're talking about the 10th Commandment and not coveting. And I have a feeling that our kids might be struggling with the not coveting their friends' less stressful summer schedule than what we're putting them through this summer. So we are basically gone once we hit the end of June.
Yeah. Well, once we're coming up close to this episode on coveting, and you mentioned graduation parties, I was brought back to a memory. A couple years ago, we were at a grad party at our friends, the Myers' house, and it was on their back deck. Everybody's there, all the food, all the fun, looking into their backyard, and they've got the pool and the yard and the bag toss and the children swinging on that big tree swing thing. And another friend comes up, Steve comes up, he says, "Hey, Rob, how you doing?" I go, "Steve, honestly, I'm struggling with a little backyard envy right now." And he says, "Oh, yeah, me too. Isn't this just amazing?" And we enjoyed a laugh and an appreciation for all the fun that was happening. And I think that was on a Saturday. And the next day, obviously, we're in church, and we're going through the book of Deuteronomy, and we are in Deuteronomy chapter 4 and 5, where there's this retelling of the 10 Commandments, right, or the re-giving of the 10 Commandments. And the text was, "And you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, and you shall not desire your neighbor's house, or his field, or his male servant, or his female servant, his ox, his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's." I'm like, oh my goodness, I was just doing that yesterday. And it made me think like, okay, imagine my conversation with Steve. He comes up to me, "Hey, Rob, how you doing?" And I say, "Well, honestly, I've really been struggling with stealing. In fact, I was just upstairs and I was rooting through some jewelry and I got some here in my pocket." And Steve says, "Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that would
I was down in the basement
happen.
trying to find, loose cash and things like that." Well, we would never say, he'd probably call the cops if I said that.
Right.
But because I said I'm coveting or I'm envious of my neighbor's house, we all just sort of got a laugh about it. And it made me realize, I think we sort of put the 10 Commandments into little ones and big ones. Well, stealing, that's obviously a big one, but coveting my neighbor's house, coveting my neighbor's yard, even though it's just right there in number 10, maybe not so big.
Yeah, for sure. The commandment from Exodus 20:17, "You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's." So that is the commandment that we are talking about today, and I think that also includes your neighbor's pool, which Rob just mentioned at the graduation party. And that's
not
probably,
in there.
Yeah, it's not in there, but it does say anything that is your neighbor's.
Okay, so it's in there.
So it is in there. Maybe not so specifically. But in the 1828 Webster's Dictionary, which we often refer to, what covet means is to desire wrongfully. What's really interesting about this is that it's 100% commandment of the heart. You really don't have an external behavior that is mentioned here, because coveting is something that you could be doing and absolutely no one would know that you are doing it. So it's very much a hidden behavior of the heart. And whereas other commandments like do not steal, I mean, we can talk about a heart component of that for sure, but it's certainly the behavior of stealing which is addressed as you should not do that. And the other thing that's interesting about this, I heard a speaker at a homeschool convention when he just sort of said out openly that the 10 Commandments are given to men, which sort of shocked me when he said that because I hadn't really ever connected that. But his point was in making that statement was that when you get to the 10th commandment, it specifically says that you shouldn't covet your neighbor's wife. So therefore, he's talking to the men. And it's not that we can't take that as a universal commandment for everyone in the household, but it definitely speaks to the fact that he's talking to a community, and he's talking to a community where men are the head of the households. So therefore, the commandment is addressed to the man very specifically here. Do not covet your neighbor's wife. So it leads us to just conclude that when the 10 Commandments were given, they were given in community, and they were given with the context of fathers and men being the heads of the households, responsible for teaching the commandments to the rest of the family.
Yeah, that's really good. And digging in a little deeper on the words, sometimes you'll hear these words coveting or to covet and be jealous as interchangeable, and they definitely overlap. But in the Hebrew, there's two different words, one for covet, one for jealous. Coveting is chamad, and that's the word here in the 10 Commandments. And that is a sinful, selfish desire to possess something that belongs to someone else. It's wrongfully wanting what is not yours. And as we get into next week, it really then stems from like a lack of trust in God, like not being thankful for what God has provided for you. And in the Old Testament, this word coveting, it's always wrong. Now, the word jealousy, which is kana, that is the other side of the coin. It's a strong desire to protect or hold on to what is rightfully yours. So that's about like guarding a relationship or a possession. And that can be right or wrong, depending on the context. So God is jealous in a holy way. Exodus 25, I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. So he has this righteous jealousy for his people's love and worship. Human jealousy can be rightful. A spouse would feel godly jealousy if their partner's flirting with somebody else. But it could also be sinful if it becomes possessive or controlling, and that's what it talks about in Galatians 5:20.
I think those are such important distinctions because that's one of those words that gets confused for people. I mean, I think in our vocabulary, jealousy and coveting or envying are all the same thing, so people don't really address those distinctions so often that when you hear God is a jealous God, people then feel like that would be wrong for God to be jealous because of that confusion. So that's a very helpful clarification, I think. But going back to this, coveting, again, being a heart attitude, and yet we take it less seriously as some of the other commandments. But what's interesting as we're looking into this, I'm reminded of the wars that have been fought through history over issues of coveting. And the one that stands out to me is the Trojan War, the Homer's story of the Trojan War.
Is that the one with the horse?
Well, yeah, eventually it gets to a horse. You should know this, correct? The Trojan horse.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you tell us the story of the Trojan horse since you brought it up? I wasn't going to go there, but you brought it up, so.
It's quiz time. I wasn't prepared for
Well,
this.
now.
All right,
pop
so they
quiz.
want to take the city.
What
and
city?
Troy.
Good.
Yes, Trojan, Troy. I'm aware of that.
Who wants to take the city?
The Greeks.
Good.
Good also. And so in order to take the city, they come up with this idea. They build a big wooden horse.
Who came up with the idea?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, yes, you do. Think.
I don't know.
Odysseus.
Odysseus came up with the idea. That's what I was going to say.
I thought you
That's
were.
after he made it through like the sirens.
No, you're totally onto another book now. Don't go there. That's his journey home from the Trojan War.
After the Trojan War.
Right. Correct.
Okay. They build the big wooden horse. The people in Troy say, wow, big wooden horse, cool. Open the gates, bring it in. But Greeks are inside. They come out, kill everybody, and we win. Or they win. I don't know if it's we.
The Greeks.
The Greeks win.
Yeah, it's not we. I wouldn't call it we.
You're rooting for the horse people, though.
No, you're rooting for I'm always rooting for the Trojans because Hector is the best character in the whole story. And you don't really like Achilles. But we are really tangenting here, and I'm glad.
I cannot be held responsible for this. Producer Biff is in the other room, like
you're the one who
doing
brought up the Trojan horse. I was going to talk about the beginning of the Trojan War, which begins with
coveting.
Coveting.
Let's get back on track.
Because it's a fascinating. The Trojan War is one of the most famous myths that's been studied. It's still being studied today, and it's all about Paris stealing the wife of King Agamemnon. He comes in and, Aphrodite gives him permission to steal Helen. And so that's why she's known as the face that launched 1,000 ships, because the Greeks all went to war over getting Helen back. Like, that's what it's about. That's the entire, so when you think about the lives that are destroyed over coveting, because, well, he did steal the wife eventually. So there's another sin in there. But my point is, it's just that it is a real sin that affects, again, communities. And I don't think any of us really think of it that way. But we could go through history and talk about a lot of different wars or even legends of wars that are fought over the beautiful princess, wanting to have the prize. That is a common theme you see in literature.
Well, I have learned a lot in this.
I'm glad.
So I think you're right, and there's this focus on this text on comparing or coveting issues of the home and family, right? Your spouse, your home, your donkey. It talks about the livestock. The livestock are both for riding and doing work. So for us today, it's cars and lawnmowers. Those would be the things the guys are comparing down the street. And one thing I think is fascinating is that this is 3,400 years ago when the commandment's given. And it's the same temptation. Like, human nature has not changed
Correct.
one bit. Now, I want to talk a little more about the dangers of comparison in marriage. I think every married person, if they're honest, has faced that temptation to covet with that thought of, what if I was married to her? What if I was married to him? The coveting can come because of looks, but I think oftentimes it's a lot deeper than that. I wonder if I'd be more compatible with a woman like that or a man like that. And by the way, this command is for single and married people alike. A single person could be wrongfully desiring their neighbor's wife or their neighbor's spouse. Why this warning? First of all, like, the comparison game is going to get us nowhere. We're going to talk more about that in the next episode, because comparison sometimes is underneath what we're dealing with this commandment not to covet. The reality is it's irrelevant to your life how another spouse looks or acts or thinks or how much money they have. Your spouse is your spouse. And it's sad that we have to say that out loud, but it's like, your marriage is your marriage, and you're responsible to tend and invest in your marriage. But I do think this is one of the areas where you have the grass is always greener principle. What I think married people are tempted to do is to compare their husband or wife with who they know completely. They know them inside, outside, all their problems, all their failures, all their lack of character. And we compare that to the distant, superficial image of the gal next door or the guy next door. And people always look better from a distance.
That is very, very true. And it reminds me, I do kind of a study of rom-com movies, because I do think they reflect a lot of things in the cultures. And I wish I could remember the name of this movie right now. It's escaping me. But it's about these four couples that are good friends, and they're going through life together, and they have this annual retreat, and they all have different marriage problems. But one of these couples, the man is actively having an affair. And they bring up in this movie something that I had not heard before that I think is powerful and relates to this commandment. It was called the 80-20 rule. And normally when we think of the 80-20 rule, we think of that in relation to 20% of the people do 80% of the work. But they were talking about that in relationships, that the whole point of this storyline of the couple where the man's having an affair is that his wife is 80% of what he wants, but 20% of not what he wants. And the woman he has the affair with has the 20%, but not the 80%. So the theme in the movie was that if you have an affair, you're most likely to end up with your 20%, not your 80%. And that I loved that because I do think that plays into this, the trick of coveting, that you assume that if you had that, that would answer all your problems. He ends up marrying the woman that he had the affair with and then missing his wife because he married his 20%, not the 80%.
It's good. Well, we're going to keep going in this conversation in our next podcast as we do our final installment of the 10 Commandments series. But we do have a featured resource that we want to get into your hands today. Amy's and my book, Visionary Marriage. We've been talking about marriage and coveting here. And we have got 5 free copies of Visionary Marriage that we would love to give away. All you have to do is email podcast@visionaryfam.com. And if you're one of the first 5 people to email us requesting a copy of Visionary Marriage, give us your mailing address. We will get that in the mail to you right away. We'd also love to have your help and partnership in helping more families around the world follow Jesus. It's really simple. If you will leave a review, if you will leave a comment, if you will share this episode with your friends and family, that helps get Family Vision and the encouragement that we want to bring to families around the world out to more families that need it. And as always, if you have prayer requests for your family, email those to us. Our prayer team will get them, pray for you, and get back to you. You can email your prayer requests to us at podcast@visionaryfam.com. And we look forward to our next time together with you on Family Vision.